All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly massive historical chapter. We're looking at the evolution of early Indian society and statecraft, spanning all the way from 2000 BCE to 1000 CE. We're talking about an absolutely incredible sweep of history here, tracing how early, simple communities totally transformed into these massive, deeply complex empires.
Just to set the scene for you, take a look at this. Imagine actually standing right there in this vast, ancient landscape. We are traveling way back in time to figure out how people organized themselves long before modern technology. I mean, no internet, no smartphones, not even basic road networks. You have to wonder, how on earth do you build a unified society across such a gigantic expanse of space?
So here's our roadmap for navigating these 3,000 years. First, mapping early India. Then, from kinship to empire. Next, the art of governance. After that, evolving social structures. And finally, ancient echoes today.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, Mapping Early India. To really wrap our heads around what's happening in this chapter, we have to grasp the sheer scale of time we're dealing with here. We're starting way back in the second millennium BCE. That's when early literary sources like the Rig Veda pop up in the Sapta-Sindhu region. And we're stretching all the way to 1000 CE. Guys, that's 3,000 years of human development. Across this timeline, we literally see the rise and fall of countless dynasties. But what's truly mind-blowing isn't just the constant change. It's actually the continuity.
And a huge part of that continuity over this massive timeline was this concept of the Chakravarti samrat. Basically, this was the ultimate political ideal of a single, unified, pan-Indian monarch. Through shared rituals and political ideas, this concept spread like wildfire. It helped forge this deep sense of unity and governance, promoting the vision of the entire Indian subcontinent as one cohesive political entity. And that held true regardless of which specific dynasty was currently calling the shots.
Moving right along, let's get into Section 2, From Kinship to Empire.
So how exactly did they level up from tiny local groups to these massive empires? Well, they didn't just jump straight to having emperors overnight, right? It happened in steps. Step 1 starts with close-knit, kin-based groups known as the Jana and Kula. Then, as populations grew and people put down roots, we hit Step 2, the Janapadas. These were much larger, territorial-based political units. And finally, the whole shebang culminates in Step 3, the explosion of vast, pan-Indian empires, like the Mauryas and Guptas up north, and later on, powerhouse imperial polities like the Cholas down in the south.
Now, let's shift gears to Section 3, the art of governance.
Okay, so you've built a massive empire. Now, how do you actually keep it from falling apart? Well, foundational texts like the Arthashastra and the Shanti Parva of the Mahabharata basically became the ultimate survival guides for rulers. You see, these kings didn't just govern by brute force, they governed by philosophy. These ancient scrolls provided some incredibly deep, structured guidance on ethics, justice, and exactly what a king owed to his people.
And according to these texts, a king's job was this insane balancing act. On the one hand, you had your external responsibilities, protecting the borders and keeping subjects safe from outside threats. But on the other hand, the internal responsibilities were just as heavy. You had to administer justice, prevent domestic disorder, and deal with everything from petty theft to full-blown treason. It was just this constant, exhausting negotiation between national defense and domestic law.
To manage all of that without losing their minds, ancient scholars came up with some seriously sophisticated frameworks. Take the scholar Kautilya, for instance. He outlined something called the Saptamga, which translates to the 7 essential constituents you absolutely need to run a state. We're talking about the king, the ministers, the territory, the forts, the treasury, the army, and the allies.
But here's the kicker. Kautilya didn't just see these as 7 separate government departments, not at all. Think of ancient statecraft like a living, breathing body. The state was viewed as an organic whole. Every single one of those 7 constituents had to be perfectly integrated for the state to survive. I mean, if the treasury runs dry, the army fails. If the ministers give terrible advice, the king fails. It was a profoundly interconnected way of looking at government.
Which brings us to Section 4, Evolving Social Structures.
Now, the foundational glue holding everyday ancient society together wasn't just a bunch of strict laws handed down by a king. It was something deeper. It was dharma.
Dharma was this enduring, shared socio-ethical framework. It regulated customs, personal relationships, and daily duties. Basically, it made sure everyone understood their specific role within the broader community. You can think of it as the ultimate shared moral compass of the era.
When a lot of us think about ancient Indian society, we kind of jump to this image of a super simple, ultra-rigid hierarchy based entirely on the Varna system. But honestly, the early texts reveal something way more dynamic. Instead of just putting people into rigid little boxes, an individual's social identity was actually this incredibly complex web. It was shaped by overlapping factors: your ethnicity, your geographic region, your gotra or kinship subgroup, the language you spoke, and crucially, your occupation.
In fact, let's go ahead and bust a really common myth right now. There's this famous verse in the early sections of the Rig Veda where a seer describes his own family, and he points out some amazing occupational diversity. This proves that, early on, different family members living under the exact same roof could hold completely different jobs. You could literally have a poet, a physician, and a corn grinder all sitting around the same dinner table sharing a meal. How cool is that?
This kind of occupational flexibility totally flips our modern preconceptions about ancient social structures on their head. Occupations weren't just firmly fixed by birthright right out of the gate. People actually moved, they adapted, and they contributed to society based on their specific skills, not just the family name they happened to be born with.
And finally, let's wrap things up with Section 5, Ancient Echoes Today.
As we close out this explainer of the chapter, I really want you to think about this actively for a second. If you were put in charge back then, how would you keep a vast empire totally united? Remember, you don't have the internet to instantly message a governor 1,000 miles away. You have no phones. You don't even have paved highways to quickly move your troops or supplies around. And yet, they managed to create political entities that spanned almost the entire subcontinent.
It really just leaves you in awe of the sheer scale of ancient human achievement, doesn't it? I mean, they had to rely on shared ethical codes like Dharma and complex structural blueprints like the Saptamanga to make it all work. But you have to wonder, what were the real, nitty-gritty daily challenges they faced without modern communication? And more importantly, what can their wild success in building these complex, organic states teach us about leadership and community in our own world today?